Hello, welcome to the Women Who STEM the Gap podcast, an IIT Delhi and Co-Impact initiative. I am Ridhima Sharma, and I'm excited to bring you the insights and experiences of some incredible women in STEM. In this episode, I will be speaking with Dr. Pankhuri Narula, a postdoctoral researcher in the Department of Biological Sciences at IIT Delhi. You can learn more about her work in the description below. So today I have with me Dr. Pankhuri Narula, who is a postdoctoral researcher in the Department of Biological Sciences at IIT Delhi. She's also currently leading her own project as the principal investigator, and I'm very excited to be speaking to you and learning more about your journey. So, hi Pankhuri, please
Hi, Ridhima.
could you please tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, and how did you reach where you are?
Yeah. So I'm Dr. Pankhuri Narula. So I'm currently working as a scientist in School of Biological Sciences under a DBT Biocare scheme. And I have done my PhD from IIT Delhi only. Before that, I did my master's from Punjab University, Chandigarh in biochemistry. So my whole area has been into biological sciences only after, what say, 10th. So this is me in terms of my educational qualifications. Now I am currently working on my independent project, which got funded by the Government of India. So I'm very happy and excited about it. It's like your own baby you're working on now.
So tell me a little bit about your background. How did you get into STEM? How did you decide to take up biological sciences that, okay, this is what I want to do?
So after 10th, so there, always it's a confusion which stream to go for too. So by default, parents, they want you to be in the same stream they are in. So, like my father was into banking, so he always wanted me to go for the commerce. And so I did also go for the commerce. But 1 month into credit and debit, I got to know, no, this is not for me. I can't do that. So I went home and said, please change my stream. ये सब मेरे ऊपर से जा रहा है. I mean, I'm not into all this maintaining this leisure and everything. So he said, are you sure about that? I was like, yes, I'm sure about it. So now I realize I was very sure about taking biology in my plus one. So of course I was like 1.5, 2 months late. Everyone around, just think, you have expertise of banking at home, you well guided and everything. We don't know anyone who is into medical and everything. I said, no, but I just can't do it. So he got me shifted. So there and then this biology has always, amazed me. I was very sure for this branch because I was very much amazed by how this human body and all the living things work around us. That was one of the reasons for my inclination towards the biology. And after my plus two, I was not able to secure a seat in my MBBS. And then again, I was very sure like I can't leave it and pursue anything else and leaving biology aside and go for a physics or something kind of a sort. Then I saw this course of biochemistry, and then there was like, why biochemistry? It is very new. It is a very core subject. Opt for something more basic, which will open up more lines to you, like a life sciences or a zoology kind of a thing. So I said, no, I really now wanted to understand how this DNA, RNA thing works. At 18, 20-year old, I'm amazed by, mutating something of a genetic and it is affecting the phenotype, how these things are working. So that thing has always amazed me. So that was the other reason I opted for the biochemistry. And then there was no looking back. So, then you more and more find your own ways and find your own things that attract you. And I always did what amazed me. So it was, of course, there was no point of doing something which didn't have my interest into. So I was very lucky that irrespective of whether I had that decision making power in other things or not, I was very sure about this thing. And I'm very happy where I am now. And the project and everything till now that I have worked upon, they are very close to my heart. The beauty of science is it amazes you every day. Of course, there are, highs and lows. There are more lows than highs, but every single day is a new day. It gives you more strength and patience, to in your journey ahead. So that is biology for me.
So this is really exciting. So did you continue working on your DNA, RNA through your master's and PhD, or did you kind of change tracks? What was your PhD topic about? And perhaps you could tell me just briefly about what project you're working on now.
Of course, I have changed my tracks, that is there, but the core area was always the same. So in my MSc, there's this thesis part which you do. So my work was totally on an animal model, and it was more of a neuro part of a research. When I was in 10th, I always wanted to be a neurosurgeon. So this neuro thing has always attracted me. So in my MSc, so this my whole project revolved around the neuronal networking and all its implications. But when I got into my PhD, so there was this, very much trend which was going around the drugs. How, there are a lot of drugs, but still, they are not able to act. And there are a lot of research going on about their, delivery and everything. So my PhD project was more focused on the drug delivery parameter. And then when after my PhD, a part of my PhD was concerned around the viruses. So viruses are notorious, of course, but they are very beautiful because they are very symmetrical and stable. And the way they adapt, I mean, it is just inspiring. So they're not good for us, but their whole journey, it is, if you look at them, I mean, the first virus, when I isolated, purified, and looked at it, and I was just like, wow. Although it was not doing any good to us, but it was a wow. Like, it was looking so beautiful and so stable and so homogeneous. So now my current project is a core virology and structural virology, where I focus on a few viruses, the class of viruses, and we structurally, elucidate their everything, kind of a structure and how they interact, how they look at their different steps of their life cycle. And looking is more of a believing, and you can connect more. So that has amazed me. That was my post PhD thing. That project was given to me as like, okay, you just try this. And I was like, I have never worked in, purified viruses. That's that. So I'm not sure I'll be able to do that. But with luck, I was able to purify it in first go. And there's kind of a you say there's a band you see during our purification process. And I was like, oh, I saw a band. And my lab mates were like, did you really get a band? I said, yes. What's the hype about it? Do you really get a band? I said, yes, I saw that, circular band. So that's the virus. It's a confirmation, you're having a lots of it. So from then, viruses is now my core research area. And in viruses, it's structural virology that has attracted me more. So that is, I'll be now focusing on in my this independent project that I'm currently pursuing.
That sounds very exciting, and you're obviously very, very passionate about what you do. When you were talking about, let me just circle back to like your previous response, when you were talking about being very sure about wanting to take up biology in your 11th grade and just like wanting to be on that path. Was there any particular experience or individual or your education up until grade 10 that really kind of made you feel like, okay, biology is what I want to pursue? Because you said that, your family background is in banking and they wanted you to take commerce. So was there somebody else or some other like key experience that you can perhaps connect to your interest in biology?
See, being my parent into banking, but still they had some friends who were doctors as such. So whenever we used to go to their homes and, have a chit chat, so doctors kind of always have something, an interesting, conversation. So there I used to get very interested. Oh, this happened, and then he came with these symptoms, and it started from there. But I don't know, it was the instinct in me that I got connected with the biology and especially with the this human body and everything. So from that point, I mean, I was kind of sure, okay, this is, I have to go. Never, I think this maths or political sciences or anything never attracted me. It was just one subject which I got attracted to. It was Aankh Band Karke biology.
Wonderful. And when you talked about meeting doctors and hearing them talk and getting really interested in it, I'm also curious to understand what your experience was like you when you joined, say, 2 months late into your grade 11, grade 12 biology after kind of letting go of commerce, because there is a lot of conversation around certain STEM careers being more suited to, say, girls more than boys, and this weird
Right.
kind of self-selection, and often that happens that, okay, this is more suited to you versus that is less suited to you. Was there some kind of experience that you had around that? Was it that you had more girls in your batch, or did you face any resistance or challenge in getting people to take you seriously?
Yeah, I tell you, when you're in school in class +1 and +2, till that time it is quite okay. At that time, biology is for sure taken as an easier subject to choose as compared to the maths. And it is by default considered as an easy option for the girls as compared to the maths. I don't know why. But what I think is if we talk about the history or something, biology is always seen as more of a nurturing science. You need a lot of patience and you need of more of, empathy. And so these traits are always associated with the women. By default, they see, okay, so women are, more inclined towards the biology, but it is not the case. But the moment you step out of +2, so there are boys that if they don't get an MBBS seat or something, they will not go for the research. I don't know why it is not taken as seriously. So after medical, the only thing that is taken very seriously if you get an MBBS seat. Other things like if you're doing a BSc, it is taken very leniently. Okay, ठीक है, BSc है, अच्छा है, lecturer लग जाएंगी, and then the work and both, this home will be taken care of. और क्या चाहिए? This is the point. This is और क्या चाहिए is the stop that is put by the society for a woman कि बच्चे भी संभाले जाएंगे and you have this till 2 o'clock वाला job and what do you want more out of life? And when the things like these are said so many times around you, you by default start believing it. See, seriously, what do I need more in life? I'll be having a handsome income, my children will be happy, my home will be taken care of. What do I need more? So when I stepped out of +2 and I got enrolled into a different city, so there I felt one thing. So I lived in Ludhiana and I did my undergrad in Chandigarh. So it was like 120 kilometers. So a lot of people told my parents there is no need to send her there, and there is no point. She can do the same. It's a BSc, she can do the same BSc by being at home. Why are you sending her there? There's no point. I'm very lucky that they overheard all those things and they decided to, okay, no, you go. Even if it was the same BSc and I'll get the same degree under the same university, but the exposure matters. The restraint in terms of a girl child, which I faced, was this: why are you sending her there? There is no point. But now, if I look back, had I done it from my city and not from, there, it would have made a lot of difference. I wouldn't have get the same exposure. I wouldn't have get the same infrastructure. So that, of course, in the long run, you will see it has made a lot of difference. And when I entered into my BSc, it is very evident the ratio of, boys to girls. It is very evident. So we had a small class of 20. So what, like 13 or 14 were girls and rest of the boys. And those also, most of them, they opted for the MBA after the undergrad or they went for the other government exams. So I would say, as of my knowledge, there's just one who pursued with the PhD and he's doing the research. So by default, this thing is hampered. But again, there is a reason because in our society, like men, they are bound to be stable at a certain point of age. They are bound to look after their family. So they need to look for the jobs which will give them early stability in terms of finances. That is there a burden on them. This field of research does not guarantee that. Of course, there will be an income of money. You'll get different projects. You'll be enrolled in different programs, but of course, not like the ones you'll get after the MBA or, in a government exam. So that is there. I think because of that reason and that ideology, this thing of BSc and MSc ratio is not good.
So, you mentioned that, of course, that it's seen as an easy option that, okay, you'll complete your BSc, you'll get some sort of a lecturer position, and it'll be a job until 2 o'clock. Of course, you didn't do that, right? You went for your
Yeah.
MSc and then you went on to do your PhD. Was there at any point, were there any particular challenges that you faced, any negotiations that you had to make to be able to go forward? I mean, PhDs are extremely research intensive. There's a lot involved in doing that kind of rigorous coursework and research, and also kind of managing what society expects from you in terms of having that stable family life. So in terms of both like your research as well as your personal life, were there any challenges or negotiations that you had to make in order to kind of successfully finish your PhD and continue on the path that you are on now?
See, in my case, I was very lucky to have parents who supported me in any decision that I took back then in terms of my education. So after my master's, I got married, and then, there was a whole new world in front of me. And that was a kind of a point where I was still struggling with my career thing because I was looking for the PhDs. But I was in Delhi. That was a good part. I had a lot of options in my hand. And then there was another family to whom I need to brief, okay, this is what I want to do. Of course, by default, before marriage, my parents, kind of very relaxed. Okay, whatever she is doing, we believe and have faith in her. But when you enter in a new family, it is very tough to make, not them, but in general, the people about, what this PhD is about. For them, for most of them, it is like what? Padhna hi to jana hai. They treat you as a student. They don't know what research actually is because research is not very spoken of. It is, I always used to tell them, like what doctors do and what they prescribe, their base is research. That is what we people do. So whatever they do is the practical application, but whatever we people do is, the ground, setting the ground for them. Like this will work and what is happening. And I was very lucky in that part. They understood and okay, you just go on. And but then, here to get a PhD, you need to go certain level of exams. You need to prepare for them and being married and exams. So that was another. But one thing that always helped me is you need to be first sure of that you have to do it. There'll be many, many instances where leaving will be easy. Like there's no point of, studying. Why are you studying? Life is set, you are married, and go teach in some school. Of course, I also, taught in a school for certain months, but then I was like, no, I can't do this. So then I prepared, I got cleared, and I applied in IIT. I went in. So, of course, there were struggles to make them understand like how this will be. It's a 5-year thing, and many of the times I'll not be very happy because my experiments will fail. And so, let's go together and see how things come up. But when you get married, and within next 5 years, there's a burden of when are you planning and everything, that also comes. So every day, so you just, have to be pull yourself up and be very strong and, decide and prioritize your things that how are you want your day to go along. There will be many resistances, but in the end, it all comes to you that what you prioritize and how are you going to go about that. So it happened with me, and the only mantra that I had is I have to get up and I can do it. Many days I'll say I'm fooling myself. Okay, nothing is going to work. How I'm going to, manage all these things. But it happened. And during my PhD, I got my daughter. And again, it was a very challenging thing because I mean, it's been a saying for many years now, this career and the biological clock, they'll contradict, they'll never be aligned. So I was like, okay, what if after PhD, oh, then I'll again struggle to find a postdoc. And what after then? I'll look for a job. And then where is the time to have a child? So I said, okay, I'll have it. I mean, during my PhD and we'll manage. There comes the family support, which you need. And, you have your family behind you, beside you. So a part of your mind is kind of a free, okay, they are there. Things can be worked out. They'll be okay. You just cannot avoid the hardships. You cannot avoid the resistances. The only thing that can pull you up is you yourself. I mean, just trust you, nothing around you. Just don't believe that anybody will come and, help you. They can on one day or second day, but majority of the days it is just yourself, you who have to manage. So I have been through many things. I mean, after my daughter birth, and but the one thing that amazed me was after Alishka's, her name is Alishka's. After Alishka's birth, I was more efficient. I was organizing my time and my work very well. Okay, this is the time I have. I have to do these things in this time. So I was kind of I don't know from where I got that energy, but I was very efficient. Nahi to when she was not there, I had a time. Okay, we'll do it a hour later and let's do this then. So that was the change in me I got after having her. And other thing is, I always, had somebody at home to go to and refresh me. That is very important. I couldn't imagine myself going to an empty room and, what will I do? Whenever I'll go home, of course, with the responsibilities, there comes a lot of good times. It's just a way of seeing it.
So
That
what
was
I'm sensing from you is that, there are a variety of challenges that one comes across and that you face, especially in terms of the very common, career versus biological clock, like getting married and having children, and alongside that, pursuing a PhD, which is also very, very
hmm
intensive. It's not something you can just pursue
right,
in time pass as people might think. And having that family support then becomes really, really important. Having
right.
an understanding family, supportive family who is there for you. And like you said, there was no right time to
Yeah.
really have a child, whether it's during your PhD, after your PhD, during postdoc, after you get a job. There's no like correct time. And how was the experience of kind of doing your research along with raising your baby? Did you bring your child with you to campus? Did you have somebody, family members helping out at home? What was that like?
So, majority of the time, I had family members at home who were looking after her, but there were times when there were none. So I would plan my day and, I would tell in the lab, okay, I'm getting her today. So and my lab mates will get so excited. Okay, I'll feed her Cerelac and you don't worry. And, so I'll get her a sleeping chair and a set of clothes and the food and everything. So again, I said family support is one, but I had the lab support also. So I'll just make her sit and turn by turn, my lab mates will take care of her and everything. So I was kind of a free okay, she's there, she's in good hands, and so that I can work at times. So that because of that, she still has so many masis around and so many uncles around, and they would be so happy to feed her and give her that birth time and everything. So again, I was lucky in that aspect. But again, like I could have, many times thought ki yaar, matlab, it was not an easy thing to think, oh, I have to get my child to the work now. How are things going to go and how will people react? Because I was the only one in my PhD having a child. So how are they going to look at me at, she's getting a child in the lab and everything. But then again, you have to shun your ears to some comments and do what you want and do what you think is right at that moment. So with me, I just shunned those noises that were happening around and I did what was required. And I mean, everything around me worked for it. So I remember I have pictures of her when she was few months old in the lab. She's just sleeping and everything. So I did that. I know I didn't see anybody. Of course, I've seen professors getting their kids, but not a PhD student. But I mean, we have our happy times and happy memories here. That was like that.
So having that social support also then, in addition to the family
Very
support,
important.
your
Yeah.
workplace or campus is also very, very crucial in helping you kind of navigate your work smoothly. So your PhD is done and you've got that supportive environment. How did you decide to take up a postdoc, of course, you don't just decide to take up a postdoc, you have to apply and all of those things. Did you think of going for a postdoc outside of India? What were those decisions or thought processes like for you when you were choosing, okay, this is where I want to be?
See, I struggled with these things a lot in past few months because after PhD, it is by default now people are going out. So all of my batchmates all went out. None of them stayed here. So that by default affected me, yeah, I'll be left behind. I need to, apply but then I had a family, I had a kid. I just cannot pack my bags and go anywhere in the world. That was a restraint for me. And that affected me in that time period after my PhD because I just didn't want to settle. That was the thing. I really want to do something. So I had to look for places which were good on the childcare. I just cannot move into a sharing room. I had to look for the finances which are involved, the childcare finances, the housing finances, in addition to the lab where I'll be working. I just cannot choose any lab where I'll work for 2 years and come back with nothing. That will make no point. And I need to be very specific of what I want to do because these years will decide my future, my area then. Okay, I have my expertise in this and this is I'll be continuing as in what's in academia or in industry whatsoever. Those were the things, and I was very sure of this fact that I cannot leave Alishka behind here. Of course, that was given to me as an option that you just go wherever you want to go and we'll take care of her. But back of my mind, I was very sure just cannot leave her here. So that was the point from my side. So I end up putting applications. There were few applications which got rejected, and there were few not directly but indirectly questions like how are you going to manage the kid here alone? And on that part, I just cannot ask my husband to, leave his job and come along with me and start searching. It will be kind of a more stressful situation then. So then those things, affected me. And I was like, not having a foreign degree in my CV, how will this reflect? Those things I struggled a lot. Then I came upon this research area, which I was very sure, okay, I want to learn. Of course, this is a learning for me because it is not the extension of what I have been doing. It is very different. But it was like, okay, I want to learn this. And what I want outside is what? A good lab? Okay, I'm having a good lab here. I want to learn a new thing. Of course, I'm having a new thing here. And things like those, a good mentor, a good publication. So those I just tracked it down and eventually I come to a point, okay, whatever I'm going outside for, I'm getting here. Maybe I need to work a bit more, but I think with all, my child taken care of, I'm in a family support, I'll be able to. So I am finally content and settled with that decision. But initial months were very tough for me because when I was watching around me was just blindly going out.
That is a difficult decision to make, and to really find those places and really come down with, okay, these are the list of priorities for me, in addition to finding a
Right.
good lab and a good project to work on. I'm curious, in your, while you were researching places where you wanted to apply, were childcare and housing, all of these things very explicitly mentioned in terms of the finances or the funding that they were offering? Is that something that is commonly present when you go looking for postdocs?
Most of the places they have a set range of fellowship amount. They'll not play with that. But certain universities, they very clearly mentioned about the childcare facilities that will be offered. There were few, but they were there. And there were universities which mentioned about the housing around the area and not like this, you have to, again travel for an hour or something like that. And then so there were few, not many. Many of them were not even, considerate of the childcare and the housing, but few of them were very explicitly mentioned about these things in their requirements and what they are offering. I'll not deny that, yes.
And IIT had those policies in place as well.
I didn't, face any problem during my PhD to avail the maternity leave. It was very smooth, and the fellowship and everything was, well taken care of. As of now, I didn't face any kind of a difficulty to go through that. So IIT in that matter is very flexible. I had both of my PIs during my pregnancy. She offered me a flexible timing, which is very important. I just cannot be very strict at reaching lab by 9 because a lot of things that, they just come up at your door and you have to answer them during that time. And my present guide also, she is also very accommodating and flexible in the matter. Like, okay, when the child is sick, okay, you don't come, you take a leave, and they are concerned. And then this affects your how your the nature of work, your more commitment to the work, like your productivity. Okay, if I'm not able to come to lab today, okay, tomorrow I'm going to go and do this work, or I'm ready to give my Sundays also. So that is a two-way thing, and I have been lucky in both the times. Like I was uh, provided with the flexible timings and the work hours. I think they being through this, maybe both my peers are women, so they understand and connect more, what I was going through at that time.
And talk to me a little bit about, we talked about the financial constraints and housing aspects and childcare costs. There are so many money related things that have come into the picture. Not, when you're alone, of course, if you're planning to move to another country, but when you have a family, then it's a completely different ball game. What have been some of those conversations? Of course, there has been a new government of India postdoctoral policy, which I think has increased the fellowship amount. How does that impact you? Is that something that has been a relieving factor? Because sometimes people might think that, okay, if you're going abroad, you might be getting more in terms of fellowship and you don't get as much over here in India.
I would say two things about, first, the government has come up with the women-centric schemes. So the one which I'm working in is the women-centric scheme where they have come up with the funding for just the women candidates.
What is the scheme called?
It is called the BioCare, DBT BioCare Fellowship. So that is exclusively for the women candidates, and it has age limit is also, I think 55 years. So they have widened. It is not like you need to be just 35 years to apply for that. I mean, post PhD fellowships have not been very great. From like what they offer is not very good. I mean, single-handedly you cannot manage. Even if you are not from Delhi, I mean, cutting out rent and everything, that will not be covered. Plus, even if I'm from Delhi and plus having a child, there are a lot of childcare expenses which comes along. And that couldn't be taken care of in just your fellowship. So with the new scheme coming inside, which they spoke about the SERB, Ministry of Science and Technology. So they have increased the fellowship to a very decent amount. And we are just expecting that they'll just come up with our also, the OM released. And that is a very big relieving factor because a lot of things which can be taken care of. A kid's education in Delhi is not very easy. Plus, you just cannot provide education. There are extracurricular things also which you need to give into. So there are a lot of things that come up unexpectedly. And giving this raise to a post, of course, a post PhD will be a married and will be having a kid. If not kid, of course, he'll be or she'll be a married. So this new initiative of increasing or a hike in a fellowship is a very good and it is a relieving factor for many of us, I would say. And we are very happy about it that they are acknowledging. I think it's all because of this COVID thing, no? They are acknowledging the viruses and the bacteria and the research that is going on because this vaccine was a product of the thorough research that went in that area. So they are recognizing and acknowledging the efforts. So let's see how it goes. But till now, we are happy that they have taken some step into this.
Another thing that you had mentioned when we were talking about looking for postdocs, wanting that foreign university on your CV and, seeing people, seeing your batchmates go abroad. And of course, postdoc is usually seen as that waiting period, that kind
Yeah.
of buffer period before you get something more stable. What does that stability mean to you now in a post PhD scenario, in a scenario where you have a family that you cannot just pack your bags and leave them behind? So has the meaning of stability for you changed, or does it remain the same? Because of course you are very ambitious. It's not that you have dialed down on any part of your life.
See, I have been, told many times by my parents back in Punjab, like, why don't you just come here and join a university? You'll be given a good position. You have done so much. So when I tell them, no, I want to do more, so they're like, why? I mean, you can easily come and you can just be settled. Then I say, I just don't want to be settled right now when I can, do many more things. I mean, at my current situation. So my mother has, this conversation with me. I don't know what you want really. Why don't you just do, I don't know, what do you mean by stability? What a decent amount coming in and, all that stuff. So she was like, yeah, why don't you want to have that? I said, I do want to have that, but not right now. So I really right now want to explore. So in long run, I do see myself having a stable job and, everything. But currently, I really don't want to. It is like a personal choice. I want to explore and, learn as many things as I can. So that is there. And stability at the personal front, I'm quite content with. I have a kid, I have a family, so that is settled. And personally, I want to explore. That I'm doing. Like right now, these are the things I want, and I'm doing that. So I'm stable in that. I'm content in that. So in future, and of course, I would, look for it and I will get it. I mean, if I'm doing so much and everything, of course I'll get it. And even if there are people, who just leave their stable jobs and then they explore more, I don't know, maybe I'll also do that because वो बोलते हैं ना कीड़ा होता है वो नहीं will just not let you sit. So let's see how far I get with that. And I mean, right now, what I can say is what I want, I have.
Of course, that perseverance is something that you have
Yes.
consistently talked about throughout our conversation, that you've really persevered and really known that this is what I want to do, and kind of really move
Right,
forward despite roadblocks or people creating
right.
noise around you of whether this is right or that is wrong. And it's so important to have that clarity of thought, right? And that's not always the case that everyone is able to do that. When you were in your PhD, or even when you're working right now, you had talked about like girls kind of finishing the BSc and being expected to take up university lecturer positions or teaching at schools and things like that. Have you observed any instances? Because we talk about women kind of falling through the cracks in the STEM ecosystem in India and everywhere
Right.
else in the world as well. But have you seen instances of women dropping out at any level of their education? And do you have any thoughts on A, what might be some of the reasons why women drop out? And B, what might be some of the institutional and social measures apart from having the family support, having, a decent fellowship amount to really retain more women in STEM?
See, I would say if I talk about the undergrad and the postgrad degrees, they are like kind of taken, I mean, taken very easily by the family. Okay, ठीक है, इसको ये करना है, let her do. But when it comes to the PhD, so there comes a barrier. So generally, the families don't want their, girls to move very far off from their original town. There comes the first obstacle. Okay, अब कर तो लिया, what will you do more, है ना? Why don't you just go to, I'll talk to this nearby school and I'll get you as a teacher there. And girls, we cannot fight. No, everyone cannot fight. And then what they do, they just get married and they continue with the same path. Even after the PhD, then there comes a point of the postdoc, like I said. Now the trend is changing, maybe, or it'll change in like coming 3, 4 years. So then comes a point, okay, now you need to go to abroad. That is also not taken care, I mean, not taken very seriously. Now, how will we manage and how you're going to survive without your husband and what are you doing to your family? So then again, the blame comes on the girl. And then you feel guilty, okay, am I, doing the right thing or not? Then that is another crack where majority of the girls, they just escape out of it. And then there is a point when comes the child. So, child caring has always been directly related to the females. It should be taken care by the family members, not just equivalent just to the female. This has to change, and this is changing, but it'll take some time. So, of course, I have seen girls, I have seen few of women around me who have dropped out of the STEM, even if they had done some experience, a US postdoc, but still they have dropped out because who will take care of their kid? They'll not be able to provide, the same kind, they'll not be able to give that time and that much of care to their kid if they'll work here. Why? Again, because this has all been just centered and be taken care by the females only. So that needs to be changed. And for that, females, initially the women need to, think, okay, this is not just her duty. You can also, let her go some of her things. Okay, that can be taken care of by the husband, or that can be, let go attitude. Okay, this can be easily taken care of. You just cannot be efficient at everything that is in your hand. You need to know if the household is not very clean, it's okay. If the child has not secured A plus in the test, it is completely okay. And if the dinner has been ordered twice in a week from outside, it is okay. You first need to let your thoughts around, oh, मैंने ये नहीं किया तो I'm not a अच्छी बहू or a अच्छी mother and all. I don't want to be. You don't want to get that अच्छा tag. You need to let it go. Otherwise, so you will be under stress. And majority of the females, when they reach that the later part of their life, they are the ones who are more in stress, who get all the health related issues because they have always wanted in a rat race of being the best. I just tell my kid, if she says, Mama, I have an assessment tomorrow, okay, we'll do it for 10 minutes. Agar nahi hua, it's okay. We'll just, go easy and not to stress her out like we were used to. And I also, it's okay. Agar nahi hua, to we'll, take care of it in like other days or so it has to be like that. And if I talk about the institutional sport, see what I feel was lagging when I used to be in the school was STEM was not promoted in a female centric way. So women leaders, of course, there have been many women leaders or women achievers in STEM. If you talk about a 9th, 10th girl, if you show them, they'll be very inspired. And that was missed. I mean, the early year reform should be like you should make them more gender inclusive, and the math should not be said ये बहुत hard है, ये लड़कियों से नहीं होगा. You provide them this role models which can give them guidance and inspiration. It affects very much. I mean, their thought process and everything. If in a class of 35, if even one gets, attracted or inspired by it, it'll be a big thing. And if I talk about the institutional level, of course, there should be this policies which work upon the gender inclusiveness. Women should not be seen as, oh, okay, she's not having a child, now she'll join and then she'll know the first thing she'll do is, of course, that is also important, right? So there should be this gender inclusive policies. And second is, this doesn't happen in academics. I think this pay scale biasness that happens around. Other is we have a very good this sport group in IIT where we talk and we discuss and then we know that okay, she has also gone through this and I mean I can also do that. So that sport group and the networking is very important.
Sorry, is this a
Uh,
formal support group or an informal support group?
I think informal is always there with your friends and lab mates, but a formal support group because I just cannot go to any other department and discuss about my personal things. If there is a forum kind of a thing, okay, we are just sitting and discussing, that is really, it does affect and it does, you kind of, because I've attended this, I just think, and it was women were very vocal and, I also got to know, okay, like she is also having these problems and she is after all this and, she has reached here. It kinds of give you a strength like there's no point of stopping and you just keep moving.
And IGIS is?
IGIS is the gender equality sport group in it's a department of IIT Delhi. And of course, there is a need to involve this childcare facilities and the flexible work this timings. So these two things, flexible work timings does do magic with the work-life balance. And childcare facilities, I think it is not very well evident right now all around us, but they should be, like with the number of, daycare things just around your vicinity and everything. There are just certain measures which can really help us with unloading some of the loads that we are carrying around all the time.
You've mentioned some really important points here. Having gender inclusive policies and measures not just at the higher education university levels, but also having role models, having that kind of
Right,
inclusive education in like early schooling years as well, which is so very important. And you mentioned
right,
about the need to have role models, the need to have forums where you can really put your experiences forward, share,
right.
and be inspired and learn from how other people are navigating similar or slightly different situations. So, do you think that role models at different levels, in the sense of course, like, you mentioned that there are role models who are famous, there are certain names that one can always refer. So there are women who have broken barriers, who are famous and well known, and who we all learn about. But how important is it to have role models who you can see like on an everyday basis? You know what I mean? Like people who are like you, who have, are at that same level, not just somebody you can read about in a book or in the newspapers and things like that, but people, everyday people who you can be inspired from. And the second part of this is, what role do you think now digital media can play in facilitating some of that access to role models, or finding those spaces where you can connect with women, or people working to really make STEM gender inclusive?
See, everyday role models, I call them approachable role models. They are very much important because I have been looking around the female scientists here who have been, working, what they'll be like reaching 50 or they have crossed 50, but they are working like anything. So they inspire me on day-to-day basis. They give me the strength. Okay, if she can do it, I mean, I can also gain the strength, and do it. I mean, that is very important because that is the practical thing that you watch on day-to-day basis. So, other thing is, like what you said about the digital media and everything, that is a very good point because, having a short conversation, or if I talk about a school scenario, having a short conversation with them, or, giving a chance to just have a questionnaire with them, or just listening them live, that affects your mindset. That definitely, you know, it will affect on what are you doing and how are your thoughts about it and your takings from it, that is there. But approachable role models are, more practical kind of a thing. Like on daily basis, I always see either, my mother or my guide or my mother-in-law, I was just watch them. If they can do it at this point of time, like why I am being too lazy. So that helps. Of course, that helps. And I have seen this in my daughter also, like if she say, okay, I'm too lazy, I'll say, okay, I'm also too lazy. I also don't want to go to work, but because we need to go. Okay, now if you can go, I can also go. So that is very practical. But on the other side, this digital media and with coming up of talk about that, having a conversation or just, listening to the interviews or something and taking take home or lessons, or that also helps a lot. It is just, you need to provide the medium. Otherwise, you don't expect a ninth or 10th class student to, firstly, you will not allow them to scroll your phone and go and then they watch it. So that is there, you should provide them a medium where they see it and they learn it. So you never know when something will click.
Absolutely. Like you said, being an approachable role model is so very important, having those around. And like you just mentioned, that, you are that person perhaps for your daughter. So, what advice would you like to share with people, young people, girls who might look up to you as that approachable role model? What advice, whether it's in terms of career, whether it's, something very specific in terms of choosing what field they want to get into, what advice would you like to share?
The first and foremost thing that I would like to say is believe in what you can do, and you can do anything that is there. There'll be a lot of resistances. There'll be a lot of hardships that will come, but just never stop walking. It is very important to I mean, just walk along the path you are walking. Even a small step, there are some days, there are few months where I don't think, I just think and talk to myself, yeah, I haven't done much, but it's okay, I'm still walking. I haven't told myself, okay, yeah, I can't do it, I need to stop. It is very important not to just not to stop and keep walking and prioritize yourself. Everything will come around, and there'll be a lot of, angry faces or, not so happy faces around you. But you just sit with yourself, see if you really want to do this, how this is going to affect in future, and is this right? Even if one or two people around you are getting affected because of your this decision right now, what in the longer run? You need to prioritize yourself, set things for yourself, and just don't stop walking. I mean, that is the first thing that I'll give as an advice from my personal experiences. And believe me, a lot of resistances will come, but everything will get fixed eventually.
So one major thing that I'm also sensing here is the need to really stop wanting to be the most perfect version of anything.
Yeah,
Right?
yes,
That's
yes.
perfect student, perfect researcher, perfect daughter-in-law, perfect wife, perfect
Mm,
mother, all of those things, like just being okay with making mistakes and not doing everything perfectly, because you can't, right? Like one can't always do everything perfectly. And so I think that was a very crucial takeaway that I'm taking from this chat.
yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share? Anything, say, related to your future goals and aspirations? Of course, you've talked about being very content with the work that you're doing right now, and leading your own project is something that's very, very exciting. But any final thoughts?
Like I said, I'm also, I'm just not stopping, I'm walking down the line. Of course, I have some set future goals, which of course I want to be in the research oriented environment, whether it's in industrial or academia. So there are some certain set goals of like, okay, learning this thing and that thing, and that I'm achieving slowly. So that is giving me the self-content. There can't be anything more than when you write down your goals and you step by step achieve them. Of course, they'll add up. You just can't be settled with those. They'll add up. But the only part is you just need to be content and, walk towards them slowly. I'm not asking you to work, ye bhi karna hai, ye bhi karna hai, ye bhi karna hai. Slowly, 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 you'll have more power and you'll be more happy. That is more important.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. It's been a really, really wonderful conversation, and I'm very excited to see what you go on to do next, research and, your work in the future. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to this podcast. At STEM the Gap, our goal is to bridge the gender imbalances in STEM through multidisciplinary research, policy, and practice. If you enjoyed listening to this conversation, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and stay connected with us through our website and social media pages. Links in description.